Oh, hi! You caught me catching diseases at a popular convention. Speaking of terrifying things, let's discuss Harrow County.
Comic tropes. Comic tropes.
Hello, welcome to Comic Tropes. I'm your host, Chris. Well, it's the final week of Spooky Month, and this week we're going to be talking about Harrow County. Now, this topic, along with the others this month, were all voted on by my patrons on Patreon, so a huge thank you to all of you. It really means a lot to have the channel supported in that way, and it's going to be fun. We're going to have some more votes coming up. But today we're going to be talking about Harrow County. It is an amazing Gothic horror story by writer Cullen Bunn and artist Tyler Crook. It began in 2015 and wrapped up its 32-issue story just last year in 2018. It's an eerie story dealing with witches, but at its core, what it's really about is the sort of horror of growing up and realizing that your parents and adults are very, very far from perfect. The sort of perfect idealized version that we imagine them to be when we are younger. So without any further ado, let's dig in. In 2011, writer Cullen Bunn began releasing chapters of a story called Countless Haints on his website. He'd broken into comics in 2007 with The Damned at Oni Press. His book, The Sixth Gun, debuted in 2010 and led to Bunn getting more writing jobs, including working on Fear itself at Marvel by 2011. He retired Countless Haints unfinished after 10 chapters, most likely due to the increasing workload he was taking on. But in 2015, he brought the idea to Dark Horse, and he made it into a comic book. The original story was set in modern day, but Harrow County was moved to somewhere in the South in the 1930s. Dark Horse Comics put him in touch with artist Tyler Crook, who had worked extensively with them on books like BPRD. Crook ended up deciding to use watercolor in an effort to pull himself away from purely digital art, and the results end up giving the story an organic feel, which helps since so much of the story takes place on farms and in the woods. Bunn has used ghosts and body horror before, and both are big elements of Harrow County. The story begins with a mob lynching a witch named Hester, a clear reference to the outcast Hester Prynne from the Scarlet Letter. Hester had been a healer, but once the town noted that animals would later die in her presence, and there were rumors of her teaching their children dark secrets in the forest, they ganged up and hanged and burned her. The cinematic opening sets the stage for what's to come as Hester taunts them, telling them she will return. We then focus on our main character, Emmy, an 18-year-old living with her father on a farm. Emmy is haunted by strange dreams and feels an unease whenever she looks at an old oak tree out on the hill without knowing anything about Hester. The town keeps secrets, and Harrow County is as much a character as Emmy, her father, or Emmy's best friend Bernice, a black girl her age. Over time, we realize at the same time Emmy does that she has abilities. She heals a calf after the farm cow had been giving birth to sick and malformed ones. Emmy notes that she can heal herself after some bad thorn scratches. And she encounters the skin of a boy who whispers secrets to her, told from the unnamed skinless boy who hides in the woods. Clearly, Emmy appears to be a witch, and the town's fear is that she is the reincarnation of Hester. Her actual story grows murkier, with further family connections revealed after the first 4 issues. But the first 2 arcs tell complete stories, and every 4 issues are collected into convenient trade paperbacks. I would classify Harrow County as Gothic horror. Now, there's 2 elements to Gothic horror. One, of course, is a fascination with death, and I think this book definitely has that. There's all manners of monsters and ghosts, or as this book calls them, haints. Especially things like burning skeletons. That's a really powerful visual image in issue 3. But it also implies an interest in romanticism. And romanticism doesn't always have to be romantic feelings emotionally between characters. It can also be just a fascination with nature. Nature has to do with romanticism. And this book definitely has a big, deep grounded connection with nature. It takes place on a farm. There are important settings like the big oak tree or a maze of thorn bushes. And that artwork is rendered gorgeously by Tyler Crook. I think it's a huge asset to this book, just how beautiful he makes those real environments feel and how organic and rich they are. One treat for readers who enjoy this series is checking out the process videos that Tyler created to promote Harrow County. These include videos showing how he approaches the penciling, inking, and watercolor stages of creating art for Harrow County. They're available on his YouTube page, which I will link to in the description of this video. Harrow County is special. It features some gruesome artwork like What Happens to Hester, which will consistently grab your attention. You'll know if the book is for you within the first several pages of the first issue because it sets a dark tone. I ended up liking it because, like I said in last week's video about Lock and Key, I cared about the characters. Emmy is clever and kind. The town has kept her in the dark about their past, but she digs for those secrets. One big first step is when she bravely crawls into a huge thicket of thorns to find the source of some whispers. She is scratched and bleeding, likely a metaphor for her becoming an adult. We've all hit an age where we realize that our parents, who we grow up as kids thinking they're perfect, will let us down. We realize they're as fallible as anyone else. Emmy hits this hard, culminating in her own father trying to strangle her to death. The story feels very personal. Cullen Bunn grew up in rural areas, and that background seems to have filtered into the story. And the coming-of-age theme was noted specifically by Bunn in an interview with Nerdist back in 2015 when he was first promoting Harrow County. Bunn said, quote, "I think reaching adulthood can be a pretty scary time. You're seeing a side of the world you're unfamiliar with, or maybe you had expectations in your mind that are getting dashed by the truth. Maybe you're seeing your parents in a different light, too. Maybe they aren't so superhuman as they once were. They have faults and failings." Emmy may be presented in a likable manner, but she's got her flaws, which makes her interesting. Growing up so isolated, she has hidden reservoirs of resentment and anger, which can flare up. It's enough to make us question whether she could be a threat as the townspeople fear. She's also surprisingly willing to accept things like the skinless boy and burning skeletons. On the one hand, it keeps the story moving, and it would be annoying if our main character was constantly in denial of what she's seeing. But she accepts these encounters so easily that it leaves you questioning why exactly. These flaws are built on in the following story arcs, which also deal with issues like family and duality. By the end of the first arc, really by the third issue, we're given some key backstory to Hester that relates to Emmy. I'll avoid the specifics, but it changes the main character in a very big way. And that's just the first step on a long journey she goes on to have. She comes into contact with some very strange and terrifying characters, to say the least. One great aspect of the trade paperbacks is the bonus content at the back. You'll get sketches and stories about how the story came to be. I wish more trade paperbacks included supplemental content like this to provide added value. I found myself really appreciating both the rich colors by Crook and the unique writing of Bunn. By that I mean that the story features narration boxes that feel poetic but not overindulgent. Narration boxes are a fantastic tool within comics for helping us understand the context of a character's inner emotions or the history of a place. This was some of my first exposure to Bunn's writing, and it impressed me enough to make me seek out more work by him. In my opinion, the first trade paperback of Harrow County tells a complete story. So you can actually get a lot out of just the first trade paperback. But fortunately, this was successful and it went on to have 32 full issues. The story opens up into a much bigger scope after this. But what's good about it is, and what's unique about it is that it is distinctly rural. It is very American. And you're going to be able to appreciate it because the themes are very relatable and the characters are grounded. So Harrow County definitely gets a recommendation. I appreciate my patrons for helping vote on this. It was a pleasure getting exposed to it. Definitely enjoy it. If you liked Lock and Key, you'll probably like this as well. It's not that they're that similar, but I think tonally there's a lot of similarities. Anyway, thank you so much. Before we leave, let's take a look at what fan art came in this week. Roger Garcia from Mexico illustrated this fun piece where I'm hanging out with Vampirella, and Talisa Soto, who played Vampirella and is clearly not happy with me. You can see more of Roger's work on Instagram. Sheldon Martin created this great piece of art featuring me hanging out with Aunt May, who I've criticized in the past as being drawn to look so old she looks like a zombie. Sheldon brought that idea to life. Jesse sent in some cute artwork of me hanging out with Vampirella. You can see more of Jesse's art on DeviantArt and Twitter. John Dupree made a cartoon about me and Infotron. Take a look.
Ugh. Oh, hi! You caught me picking up dog crap. Ugh.
Finally, Taylor Broussard envisions me hanging out at a bar with a bunch of comic book characters arguing about nerdy topics. You can see more by Taylor on Instagram. Thank you everyone that sent in some fan art. If you would like to have some fan art featured on this channel, I'd be happy to include it. Just send it to this email address, comictropes@gmail.com. I'm happy to include it as long as it has something to do with this channel. And then on top of that, I will actually pick a winner to get a Gachapon prize. So I'm going to spin the ball spinner. The Gachapon prize comes out of the machine that was donated to us by Lunar Shine Store. So thank you for that. All right, opening it up here and shifting the balls around. Number three wins this week. That was the person that sent that in, so thank you very much for that. Harrow County, very, very cool comic. Seriously, I think my favorite element is probably the artwork, but I ended up falling in love with writer Cullen Bunn's style. There was something very unique about the way he writes both dialogue and those narration boxes. I haven't put my finger on exactly what makes it unique yet, but there is definitely something that he does that stands out from the rest. And so I'll have to come back at some point and analyze some more of Cullen Bunn's writing, because I really did enjoy it. I was kind of pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed this. Next month is going to be another theme, but I'm going into crime this time. First we did horror, now we're going to do crime. Then in December it'll be a mix of everything. But I've got some other themes coming up. That's kind of fun. It keeps me interested, and it allows my patrons to sort of vote on what topics will be coming up. So that's one reward that you can get on Patreon, is the ability to vote on what kind of topics I will cover. I can't thank you guys enough. Obviously this video probably looks a little different. My camera completely died on me. It is dead. I had to use my iPhone at the last minute for just this episode. I should be able to get a better camera next week. I believe that my production values will finally go up. Sorry about the sound and audio, or how about audio and video quality? It's the best I could do under last minute circumstances. I figured better to still make an episode than to just completely skip it. Especially where I was planning on doing 4 episodes of horror comics this month. I really did want to complete that. So, if you were curious, that's what happened. My camera was, I guess, just getting old, and it had been showing signs of giving me issues, but all of a sudden I just could not get it started this week. And that was very frustrating, but we managed. We've got an episode in the can, and I just want to say thank you all for watching, for hitting like and subscribe. It's much appreciated, and until I see you next time, keep reading comics.